Hola a todos, hoy vamos a hablar del pretérito perfecto en español. So today we're going to talk about the present perfect in Spanish. As you see, the translation is el pretérito perfecto, right? Now, this is a very interesting tense because it is used to talk about the past, but it is called the present perfect, which represents the ultimate contradiction. But let's see how it is used. So the present perfect is used to talk about events that started in the past but continue in the present, right? So if we want to talk about an event that started in the past but continues in the present, we use the present perfect. This means that the past affects the present. So this is the first usage, right, for an event so we use it for an event that started in the past but continues in the present. Secondly, it is used to talk about events that have recently ended. So if we want to talk about an event that has just ended, we use the present perfect. This use is going to depend on where you are. This is primarily used in Spain. Spain will use the present perfect to talk about an event that has recently ended. Whereas in Latin America, they would use the preterite in this case. So if they wanted to talk about an event that had just taken place, they would use the preterite as opposed to the present perfect. Thirdly, it is used to talk about events, past events with no specific time reference. So if we want to talk about an event that took place in the past, but we do not mention when it happened, nor the time frame in which it happened, we use the present perfect. So these are the three uses of the present perfect. And as you see, they all deal with the past tense, right? But the present tense is still relevant. Therefore, we say that this tense connects the past and the present. So those are the uses. Now let's look at the formation. So it has two components, which means that it is an example of a compound tense. A compound tense comprising two verbs. So we have the present tense of haber, which is our auxiliary verb, and then we have the past participle of the main verb. So haber is going to tell us who performs the action. We will not be able to determine that by looking at the past participle because that is an impersonal form. So let's look at the conjugation of haber. And as you know, haber is an irregular verb. Yo he, tú has, él, ella, usted ha, nosotros, nosotras hemos, vosotros, vosotras habéis, ellos, ellas, ustedes han. So this is the first part of the structure. Now we move on to the past participle. How do we form the past participle? So to form the past participle of the main verb, the infinitive is dropped and ado is added to AR verbs, whereas ido is added to IR or ER verbs, right? So that is how we form the past participle of regular verbs. So if it's AR, we drop the AR and we add ado. Hablar becomes hablado. Comer becomes comido. And vivir becomes vivido. So these are examples of regular verbs. So let's practice. Hemos sacado la basura. We have taken out the trash. You know, sacar would be an AR verb, so sacado. Hemos sacado la basura. We have taken out the trash. And of course, I don't have to use these examples. I could use any regular verb. Let's use an ER verb. He vendido mi coche. I have sold my car. He vendido mi coche. I have sold my car. Mm-hmm. And then, let me see. So we have an example of an AR verb, an ER verb. Let's use an IR verb. Let's use vosotros. Vosotros habéis recibido el dinero. Vosotros habéis recibido el dinero. You all have received the money. If you want to turn that into a question, we would change the order so the verb would come first. So, habéis recibido el dinero, and then we change our intonation. Habéis recibido el dinero? Have you received the money? Right? So, yes, those are just examples of regular verbs. Now, let's look at irregular verbs now. Now, these would have been put together because they have a similar form. They all include the letter E with the tilde. So, caer, caído, traer, traído, oír, oído, leer, leído, creer, creído. So, yes. So, example, siempre he creído en Dios. I have always believed in God. Another example, has leído el periódico? Have you read, excuse me, have you read the newspaper? Has leído el periódico? Now, these verbs here have all kinds of irregular forms. So there's no there are no similarities, right? Romper, roto. Abrir, abierto. Escribir, escrito. Hacer, hecho. Imprimir, impreso. Poner, puesto. Ver, visto. Satisfacer, satisfecho. Cubrir, cubierto. Morir, muerto. Decir, dicho. Volver, vuelto. Absolver, absuelto. Freír, frito, and resolver, resuelto. So those are more irregular verbs. Okay? So let us practice some more. Mi madre ha hecho la cama. My mother has made the bed. Okay? Mi hermana ha puesto la mesa. My sister has set the table. Okay? O.J. Simpson ha muerto. O.J. Simpson has died. Okay? So those are just some examples using irregular verbs. So we've covered the uses and the formation. Okay? Now we're going to look at sample sentences. So we move on to the sample sentences. Now, each sentence will illustrate a use of the present perfect, of course. So 1. Hoy hemos perdido el partido. Today we have lost the game. Now, like I said earlier, in Latin America, the preterite would be used instead of the present perfect. So in Latin America, they would say, hoy perdimos el partido. Instead of saying, hoy hemos perdido el partido. Today we have lost the game. Right? So in Spain, this will be used. But why do we use the present perfect here? Because hoy, today is not over. So wherever we are, if the game took place this morning, it means we are past that time. But obviously the game has recently ended. Therefore, we would use the present perfect because the game has recently ended. Hence, we said today. We are still in that. We are still within that particular day, right? So it is an event that has recently ended. Hemos perdido el partido. 2. He viajado a Madrid. I have traveled to Madrid. When? For how long? We don't know. So this is an example of a sentence that demonstrates that an event was done in the past, but it has no specific time reference. So we can use the present perfect there. He viajado a Madrid. Okay? Going back to the use of going back to that specific usage where we talk about the present perfect being used to mention events that took place in the past with no specific time reference. If you do research, you will see that one of the themes that is used to talk about the use of the present perfect is life experiences. And to me, that falls under this category because life experiences are going to be activities that you have done in the past, but they may not have time markers, or they may not be specific time references as to when they were done, but they have been done. So I was to mention that in the previous part, but I forgot. But now that I remember, I'll mention it now. Right. So life experiences would correspond to that. Events that took place in the past with no specific time reference, right? So he viajado a Madrid, that's a life experience. That's something that I did in the past, but I did not mention the time period, right? 3. Ronaldo y su familia han vivido en España desde 2010. Ronaldo and his family have lived in Spain since 2010, okay? So this is an example of an event that took place in the past continuing in the future. So they lived in Spain, that's the event. They're living in Spain since 2010. And then from that time on, they have been living in Spain. So it's a continuous action. So we could also use the continuous form. So we could also say Ronaldo y su familia han estado viviendo en España desde 2010. That's correct because it's a continuous action. And we can also say this, Ronaldo y su familia han vivido en España desde 2010. In this case, we understand that they're still living in Spain, but they started to live in, or they, no, not started to live in Spain, but they moved to Spain, right, in 2010. This is a specific start time, right? And ever since, they have been living in Spain. So you can use the continuous form there, the present perfect continuous, or you can use the present perfect here. All right. Espero que ustedes entiendan los usos de este tiempo verbal. Muchas gracias por ver y hasta la vista.